Hi everybody, Tim Hughes here. I'm the co-founder and CEO of DLA Ignite. With me today I've got Louise Ward, and we're going to talk about communities and how to build them, how to run them. Louise has just got some amazing experience about communities. So Louise, welcome. Before we go anywhere, I always say, where can people get hold of you?
Okay, so I'm going to be talking with you about the Behavioural Science Club. And if you just type in Behavioural Science Club in LinkedIn, it'll come straight up.
Okay.
If you type my name in, it comes up quite near the top, Louise Ward.
Okay, cool. Thank you. So why don't you give us some background in terms of, because it's useful in terms of how you came across and started running the Behavioural Science Club. It's one of those kind of things that just sort of happen, but it's kind of gets your story and how you were involved, and it's part of the build. So explain.
Yeah, so it's just been this very great organic experience. I went to attend the Nudge Stock Behavioural Science Festival online, and that went online for the first time because, of course, we're all in shutdown, and the speakers were amazing. And I was like, oh, I've got to find out.
It's an Ogilvy or something.
Yeah, Ogilvy sponsored. They put it on every year, and it's usually, as most conferences are, it's in a hotel on the south coast of England or something like this. And again, it's a specialist festival, so they bring along speakers, but primarily it's going to be people going from other advertising agencies. So it's not something the public go to, and it's not something that sort of lower workers go to. So it went online. I was like, wow, this is a great experience. Started watching the talks, started taking a note of who the speakers were and the books they'd written. And, oh, God, I'm a terrible listaholic. I love to write lists of books. And I thought, God, we'll put this into LinkedIn because there might be other people who would like to read these books. So I just started up a post collecting the books of the speakers at Nudge Stock, and I threw the first one up, then I threw the second one up. And then I put the link in the chat. You know, when you're at these things and the chat's going up and down, and often there's great atmosphere actually from the people watching events. Yeah. And I put the link in. I said, the books are here if anyone's interested. Somebody else said, oh, yeah, thanks. Someone else said, oh, let's start a book club. And Prakash Sharma noticed this post that I'd put up, and the buzz started going and everyone's chatting. And long story short, almost the next day, Prakash had created this group in LinkedIn, called it the Behavioural Science Club. Mm. And the first few people who'd got excited about it all joined the club. And about a week later, after it really generated some great chat, Prakash messaged me and said, well, would you like to manage the group? I'm like, great, yeah, I'd love to. And the lucky first move was that one of the members, Tony Navarro, who was with us from very early on, he said, we were deciding which would be the first book we'd read, and he suggested to us, well, let's read Alchemy by Rory Sutherland. He's the vice chairman of Ogilvy. He's been in Ogilvy for 30 years. People know him. So he chose that, and it was kind of Alchemy. It was our golden ticket because I got in touch with Ogilvy PR, and I said, oh, you might be interested to know that we've set up a book club on LinkedIn and that we're reading Rory's book. And here now, there were probably only about 40 of us at the time. But we thought, yeah, we've got a group. And Rory saw the message and he came back to us. He said, that's a great idea. First of all, he was like, well, shall I come along? And then he was like, oh, it might be like the sore thumb at the party. Maybe that's not the thing to do. But he said, I'll record a video for you, which he did. And he put a video up on YouTube. At the time, there were 100 of us at this stage. And he's like, you don't know how flattering it is to have a book club choose to read your book. So, of course, we were delighted about that. Then Ogilvy shared the video on their own social media.
Yeah.
So that was kind of, the big thing, to have the sort of voice of somebody like that saying, I'm supporting what you're doing. But of course it validated it. We didn't know what we were doing. We were just making it up as we went along. But then to be able to go to other authors subsequently and say, we've started this group, we've now got, the members were rising at this stage, maybe it was 300, and we're saying, and Rory Sutherland is doing a Q&A with us on the 15th of the month. That just gave us opened the door basically for us. So it's just gone from strength to strength. We started with having one book a month, which would be our set book.
Yeah. And you read this book?
Yeah. We say that's our book of the month. That is the key speaker from Nudgestock, who we have chosen. But very early on, I thought to myself, I'd be reading about these great new books that have been published. I'm like, well, that's kind of key. And I'm sure our members would love to hear about this book. And so then I started contacting other authors and saying, we were planning just the 1st and the 3rd, but I'm thinking maybe you'd like to come along. So now we're fully booked with speakers up until Christmas every Saturday. We meet every Saturday at 4:00 UK time in Zoom. We chose 4:00 so that we could allow people in the US to join us in the morning. Prakash is in India, so he's 4.5 hours behind me. Ahead of me. So we've now got over 2,000 members. And in no way, Tim, does that mean 2,000 people come along to every Zoom event. But what it does mean is that we've got an extremely diverse range of people who are either just following us as we put messages up within the group, or attending, or commenting, or just reading it. Some people like to be a member of something and be sort of more, just passive, just watching what's going on. So it's just been a really, really positive, great experience.
And just it's just for behavioural science, isn't it? So it's just that we do this, and then you'll get thousands of authors saying, please sell my book.
I see. Yes. So I'm saying yes and no. The books that we choose have a behavioural science theme, but you don't have to be a behavioural scientist to join the group, and you don't have to know anything about behavioural science. Up until 3 months ago, I knew nothing about behavioural science, and here I am. I'm the monkey in charge of the pack. And the group is diverse in as much as we'll have applied behavioural scientists, marketers long in the tooth, and then at the other end there's students who are either just entering the world of behavioural science through their studies. They might be doing their masters. They might be people who have a sort of passion about the subject and they call themselves behavioural science enthusiasts. So it's not a club that you can't join if you don't meet a certain criteria. It's a totally open club. However, once you come and be part of it, people need to be aware that our focus is on behavioural science.
And are there, you will obviously get thousands of people trying to sell their stuff. What rules do you have in place? Because I think it's important that we mention this so that people aren't sitting there writing emails to you at this moment and trying to sell their widgets.
Yeah, so it's actually quite hard to properly describe what comes under the category of a behavioural science book. It is almost the umbrella title for a lot of subjects, behavioural economics. It covers anthropology, it covers psychology. So in that respect, it's both a wide field, but we say, people need to understand which books the club members are going to be interested in. But something that we very strictly adhere to is that within the thread of the post, we don't want people submitting, this is the paper I've written, and here's this great YouTube video that I think you'd be interested in. No, listen, we're all clever people. We all know how to use Google. And if that's something that we're interested in, we'll go away and find out about it. What we do want people to be coming to us and saying is, oh, I put a post up because I'm reading the book that you're reading this month, that we're all reading together. I thought this was a great insight, or, I really enjoyed it. And then that's the kind of sharing we're doing, where the chat gets going about the book that we're reading, or about a theme with that book we're reading, or even about yourself. We encourage the members to come in and put a post up and say, here, I'm new to the group, just to introduce myself. So it's developing the community feeling, but without the pressure of the cell, because then we can all just come together and just be ourselves as people. And nobody's one up because they wrote this great paper or they recorded this fab thing on Google. We're all just there. It's a very level playing field.
So you have a one book a month,
Yes.
and is it you meet once a month, or
we meet every Saturday now?
Every Saturday.
Usually at 4:00. Now, we do choose the time sometimes because depending on who our author is. So our author last month was Bree Williams, who wrote Behavioural Economics for a Business, and she's in Australia. Okay. So then we let her prioritise a time that was suitable for her, which meant we were going out at, I think, maybe 8:00 in the morning UK time, 5:00 Australia.
And then is it that always you get the author on to do a Q&A, or?
Well, they're all invited. All of the authors who are our book of the month are all invited on. So we had our very first one in July, which is when we had Rory Sutherland. We had Patrick Fagan, who wrote Hooked, and we had him in September. August, yeah. And then we've just had Bree Williams, as I say, who we streamed from Australia. That was really great. So they're all invited. So far, I think out of the 6 authors we've got between now and Christmas, 5 of them are giving us a Q&A.
Right. Okay. And I mean, it's really great that you've got a month to read the book, and therefore there's a common language, and because you can, as you say, you can also say, I've read this on chapter 7. What do you think?
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, I'm reading a book at the moment, which is a bit like a book version of The Social Dilemma. I mean, it's 300 pages, so it's quite thick. But one of the things I found interesting was that for the first 100 pages, he dances around basically talking about whether or not the various elections have been fixed by the Russians. Then on page 20, he actually says nobody looks at Facebook ads anyway. So, I mean, it's one of those things where, come on, you could have actually shortened that a bit. But,
if you were reading it with someone, Tim, then you could be sending them a few messages at the same time.
Well, exactly.
What do you think about that?
Exactly. I mean, yes, and I mean, there's other books that cover that which I've read, written by not by data scientists, but written by journalists, and it's interesting the different view that people have. So yes, and so I quite definitely understand that if you get 3,000 people all reading the same book and having a discussion, it would be really interesting. So I'm gonna 15 minutes. I thought we'd basically talk about, because you're involved in Lift.
Yes.
In Ireland, which is a great initiative. Again, it's a community. Why don't you explain what Lift is, first of all?
I will. So Lift is a leadership. Training is kind of the wrong word, because it's very much a sharing environment. And Lift is a concept put together by Joanne Hession and a number of other people. And Joanne is an Irish entrepreneur. And the concept behind it is very lofty. It is that within 10 years, 10% of the Irish population will have participated in a Lift 8-week program, and they are lifting up the leadership skills of the people in Ireland. But Joanne is very clear about what is a leader. And a leader isn't the CEO necessarily of the company. A leader in a university might not be the lecturer. They might not be great at leadership skills. They're very intelligent people, but they are not necessarily good leaders. And her advocacy is that we are all leaders, and whilst we're having this conversation, Tim, I'm leading the conversation and you're following what I'm saying. When I'm a mother, when I'm being a parent to my children, whilst I am leading them. So it's a skill that we all have that in a way maybe we don't realize that we have. So what they did to prepare this and to plan was they actually asked the Irish public what they thought were the leadership skills, and that's how the initial core 8 were chosen. And they're things like they're listening, empathy, determination. They're such key important things that when it comes down to it, listening. I know I'm a terribly bad listener, and I try to focus on these things all the time. But the way that they're sure that everybody is being trained in the same way is that you get trained as a facilitator, and then everybody is using the same script. And to me, that is the beauty of this. It makes it simple in that I can be trained in an afternoon to be a facilitator. And then with the tools, with the script, I can then go on and share what I have learned. Actually, in any way I want to. We have a structure in that you sign into Lift and you choose a round table. So like I'll go online and be like, oh yeah, fancy doing it at 2:00 on Friday. And then like this, you sign into the Zoom event, and there could be just 2 people, there could be 6 people, there'll be a facilitator, and the facilitator takes you through the progress. And what's so great is that you read. Now, when was the last time you read something out loud, Tim? I mean, it's just not something that we do anymore. So you read, you share the reading of the script. And whilst you're reading this, you are learning, what is listening? What are the key skills? What are the benefits? And then we reflect on one thing that we felt was important or that spoke to us. Or so I'll say, oh, well, I particularly liked this line, and I'll say why I liked it. So the 5 or 6 of us share that. And then we take time, 5 minutes or so, following the rules of this grid that comes up, and we say, I'm going to mark myself on the last 24 to 48 hours, how well I have lived this particular theme. So I'll be like, in the last 48 hours, how have I done with listening? And the reason why we focus on these 48 hours is, look, we're all good people, Tim. We're all doing the best we can. So let's not focus on, our life listening. It's just too big a task. Let's just say, how good was I at listening the last 48 hours? So I might say, give myself maybe a 6. And then I say why I gave myself a 6, what I could do to benefit. What would be the benefit of improving this skill? And then I say somebody whom I think is a good listener. And the concept behind this is that if I can say, well, I'd like to say that Tim's a great listener, because when he was asking me questions about myself, I really felt he was, taking in what I was saying. Now, this puts this visualization in your mind. Oh yeah, Tim's the listener. And I then have to say something I'm going to do in the coming week to try to improve my listening skills. It could be something absolutely tiny. It could be just like, I'm going to turn my phone face down when I sit down to chat with such and such, so that it doesn't distract me. So it doesn't need to be anything enormous. But then through that coming week, you're thinking about these things, it's in your mind, and you're doing your best within that coming week to, whenever it comes into your mind, to live and improve that particular leadership skill.
And for those that don't know, LIFT stands for Leading Ireland's Future Together.
That's right.
And Joanne did a fantastic, Joanne was running companies, realizing or felt there wasn't enough leadership in Ireland. Therefore, what she did was she got a whole bunch of CEOs in the days when we could get together and talk in a hotel in Dublin and say, what should we do? And this was the answer to that. And I think it's a great initiative because, if you can get 10% of, so the objective is to get 10% of Ireland having these skills in the next 10 years.
Yes.
That will make a massive impact to the country, not just leadership in business, but well-being in every person.
Yeah, well, absolutely, because you see, we're talking to each other as adults, as business people, but LIFT is done within schools.
Yes,
this was the core idea behind it. So in Ireland, we have this thing called the transition year. And transition year comes when it's the equivalent of, in the UK, when you've finished your O-levels, which for us is the junior cert, and before you start into your A-level stream, for us the leaving cert. And not all schools have all their students. Some of them budget for maybe a third of them, but all schools do it. But basically it's a year in school where you are doing work experience, where you're going off to do group activities, you do projects on different themes. It's all to do with, building up the personality of this young person. Yeah. And in transition year, they get the opportunity, if the school has adopted it, and a very large number of schools have already adopted it, to go through this 8-week LIFT program. Right. And then what's so lovely about that is that often then the students might get patched up with some of the people in the community, the older members of the community.
Yep.
So the idea then that a 16-year-old is sharing leadership skills and training with somebody who's possibly in their 70s is just, I think, absolutely marvelous, because age doesn't give us these skills.
Yes.
You can go through your whole life and not be a good listener. So that's really, to me, the beauty of it.
Yeah. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah, that was a joke. So yes, and I mean it's so inclusive in terms of she's got the schools involved, businesses involved, and I mean it's you kind of feel. I mean she was saying that she's now planning for the third year, but you kind of feel that there is a point where it will just go viral. And
I suppose that's what they hope.
It's like it'll be like you haven't done it. Like, are you strange? So you just feel that that's going to that should make such an impact, not just on society but on business as well. I mean, it's a great initiative.
Yeah, and she's got an amazing team behind her. Amazing business people. Thought leaders, great people in Ireland who are all behind her. And so, as you say, hopefully it will get to the stage where it will become such a recognised term, a recognised concept, that people will be asking, well, how do I do it? And the thing is that once you're trained, the other thing that's so nice is that it doesn't have to actually be part of a formal structure. Like I did it around the kitchen table with my kids.
Right.
Once you're trained, that doesn't mean that then you have to be part of this very sort of formal structure. The way you share it is almost your choice. So as I say, I trained myself to get the confidence for doing it online as part of the LIFT team. I went through the 8-week program with my kids, as I say, around the kitchen table, just to get sort of the confidence of the, and that might, for some people, that might be all it is, something just to take and maybe get a few friends around and do it with their friends. Or, but as you were saying, a lot of big businesses are now part of it, and there's a very great model in terms of the finance of the project, which is that if you're a big company and you come to Lift and say, well, I would love Lift to be part of what we do here in ABC Incorporated, and you're a big company. Joanne developed this thing that she calls the Robin Hood method of payment, I think, or something like that.
But she calls it,
yeah, which basically means, if you're a big major company, you contribute a certain percentage. They have different levels. And I mean, if you're a smaller company, you pay a slightly smaller rate. It's very, very fair. And if I come into it as an individual person, Joanne will train me for free. I can attend all of the round tables for free. Nobody is refused. But the reality is that once you see what a great system it is and you're benefiting so much from it anyway, you want to give them something. I was like, Jesus, how do I get trained in this amazing thing for free? And then you donate something to them anyway. So, it's very self-rewarding.
Yeah. And she says that, if you can pay, then you pay. If you can't pay, then you don't pay. And that kind of seems fair because it will be based on trust anyway.
That's right. That's the beauty of it.
Louise, it's been fantastic talking to you. I mean, they're just great examples of community, and I love the way with the Behaviour Science Club that you've, you took. It was kind of a mistake, but all of a sudden it grew out into something, and it is, it's a fantastic example of community where you've brought people together, and they get value of actually across the world talking with each other. And by the way, some authors get some visibility, but the key thing is that you're creating value within that community.
Yeah. I mean, the key thing is the community, and even though our primary objective was to read these books of Nudge Talk, and as I say, we are booked up until Christmas with authors, but that doesn't mean that's necessarily a very strict structure as to where the group will go. Prakash, he put on his own behavioural science festival from India with non-weird countries was the main concept. And, we're saying, well, maybe going into the new year, we'd like to let members of the group come in on a Saturday and we'll chat with them to get to know them and to hear what they're doing, to hear how they bring behavioural science into their particular business, and introduce in speakers. So because we're book focused up to now, and we do say we are a book group, doesn't mean, it's at the end of the day, it's our group. We can do what you want to. Yes, so I think there's great potential to develop it really in any way that gives satisfaction to the members, which obviously that's the most important thing. As long as they're happy and as long as they're getting value from being a member of the group, then there will always be a group.
Louise, thank you so much for coming on and spending the time.
Thank you for
remind people where they can get hold of you.
So the best way to get hold of me is on LinkedIn. If you put in my name, Louise Ward, I'm usually at the top of the search for Louise Ward. Louise Ward Dublin is actually my name on LinkedIn. My messages are open, so you can message me without necessarily connecting with me. If you want to go straight to the Behavioural Science Club, if you just type in Behavioural Science Club in LinkedIn, you'll come up with the group. It's a closed group in that people who aren't members can't see the thread of the chat, but you just request to join. I go into that practically every night to approve members. So very quickly, you'll come through into the group. I'll send you a welcome email and welcome message, on LinkedIn, which gives you a link to all of the books that we're reading at the moment.
Wonderful. Louise, thank you so much today. It's been really interesting in terms of what you've been talking about, and good luck with both the book club and with Left.
Thank you so much, Tim. It's been a
You're
pleasure
welcome.
to talk to you.
Good talking to you. Thanks.